And last time when I did this, I heard that people said that there were people in the chat, but I was not able to see that on my end, which is really strange. So
I'm not seeing any chat boxes or anything. I've never used this before, so I'm
yeah,
learning.
this is only my third time using the platform this way, so
Nice.
I'm right there with you. Welcome, guys. I think we are live. My name is Fratro D. You are listening to On the Mysteries. Oh, okay. See, it's working this time. Says somebody joined. So you are listening to On the Mysteries. Today, I'm going to have a conversation with Theo Polymorphos, painter and fellow substacker. And today we're going to talk about Orphism, how Theo got into the Orphic current, how it has inspired his painting, and a little bit about what that process is. And we're just going to see where Orpheus and all of this takes us. Welcome, brother. Welcome.
Thank you, Frater.
So go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about you.
Mm-hmm.
How you kind of got into all this, and we'll just kind of flow.
Yeah, so my name is Theo Polymorphos, and I'm a figurative oil painter. Um, I'm really passionate about helping people connect with the spiritual dimension, the mythic dimension of life. As kind of a counter to the disenchantment that we all feel sometimes in
Mm-hmm.
contemporary life, and that's really rooted in my personal spiritual experiences. I hate to use the word awakening; it sounds so cheesy. Uh,
It's a little overused.
maybe it was more like a cold bucket of ice water, like poured over my head, creeping towards midlife, and yeah. So I'm really inspired by the Orphic mysteries and the other ancient Greek religions as well, and you know, kind of all the spiritual stuff that kind of like congeals around that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
mysticism in general, mythology, magic. But I really, for some reason, the Orphic myths and the symbols, all of that is really what spoke to me the most when I was kind of in this process of exploring like alternative currents, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was kind of the impetus for becoming a professional oil painter and the inspiration behind a lot of my work. And at first I was very circumspect about it. You know, um, Famously, it was forbidden to speak openly about the mysteries, and I took that very seriously for a while. Still do. I think the point is that you really, even if you want to talk about the mysteries, you can't. You can't speak the ineffable. You can't name. And so, I try to put it in my paintings, and I tap into the symbolism and the specific myths a little bit, but just enough to keep people interested without completely alienating those who might not be familiar.
Mm. So, so you mentioned it's kind of it drew you all into that kind of Grecian area. Do you
Yeah.
remember specifically what myth it was that tripped you into the realm of Orpheus? Because Orpheus is
Uh,
central, but he's also peripheral. Like
yeah.
he's the idea of Orphism is that it interpenetrates, but it's also on the fringes of the whole Greek, ethos and mythos. So, what if you can remember what was the myth or the story that really attracted you?
Yeah. So I can remember the very day. It was just a random day, and I had a little free time, and I picked up a copy of Edith Hamilton's Greek Mythology. It was the same copy that I had bought for my high school English class, like 20 years before that. And I thought, oh, I'll check in with these myths. As a kid, I always had a copy of like Dowler's Greek myths. I don't know if you're familiar with that
Hmm.
illustrations book. I mean, I took that book with me everywhere. Uh,
Nice.
Greek myths were like very dear to me, so I thought, oh, I'll just kind of brush up on this stuff. And I got to the myth about all the myths about Dionysus, and
Mm.
I. It's funny because as a child, I thought Dionysus was kind of strange, kind of weird, kind of gross. Like, who's this this scrappy drunk guy who's wrong, but they let him up on anyway. But as an adult, I saw things very differently, and I saw certain patterns in the mythic cycle of Dionysus that really resonated with my life. I was kind of like a vagabond and a traveler, and fond of wine, things like that. But I think the archetypal resonance of that really struck me. Like it wasn't just that I like to travel and like to party. It was like something deeper in there. And so I don't know, I became obsessed and
Mm,
quickly graduated from, Edith Hamilton to like Carl Karenyi and Walter Otto and all, the classic books about Dionysus, and was just kind of chugging along with this current in my life, wondering what it's all about. At the time, I had gone from Christian to like wannabe Sufi to agnostic to atheist at the time. But things started happening. I started noticing more and more synchronicities in my life, and things that were just like a little bit too uncanny, like symbolic objects, turning up,
hmm
or a gift from a friend that they had no idea what was on my mind, but it was like the perfect thing, and it was like tapped into some Dionysian myth. And yeah, I started doing my research online, and I met a group of people who was doing ritual, and flash forward a couple years later, and I've been initiated into the mysteries. And this
mm,
and this kind of not quite reconstructionist, maybe revivalist, you could say, group of people. And that's how I found the Orphic mysteries specifically, and the figure of Orpheus. And at first Orpheus was very distant to me.
mm.
Um, and I really wanted to communicate with him, and I couldn't do it. Dionysus was always there with the suggestion, helpful or not. But yeah, Orpheus took a little more time, and I think I really had to like continue that path a little bit and live into the mystery, and just all of the events that happened after that. Dionysus came first, and then later it was Apollo, which is
Mm.
kind
Two
of,
sides of the same coin, really.
yeah, yes. And I didn't quite understand that at first, but having come full circle, and this was what, like 2017, 2018. I think I understand it a little bit better now. But at any rate, that was kind of the ball, the ball that got the whole game rolling.
Okay. So from there, then you decided. I mean, how did you get to the decision of I'm going to paint this. I'm going to bring this into a new skill set. This is how I'm going to represent this part of my life. What was that journey like?
So kind of in tandem, in parallel with all of this going on, I had a pretty successful career in like the nonprofit sector, doing development work, but it wasn't quite fulfilling to me creatively. And I had been creative as a child, and I just had this idea. I'd been working on this idea for years, like doing something creative, like, and I didn't know what, and I tried creative writing, I tried shibari, I tried drawing. But yeah, one day I had always wanted to take a figure drawing class because the human figure was the most challenging for me. And I just never had the time because I was always traveling and traveling for work. Finally got some space and took the class, and it was just like instant. Like, I mean, it was difficult at first, but it was like this thing that I felt like, again, obsessed by. So I was, at the same time, I was like obsessed with Dionysus and Orphism, and I was obsessed with figure drawing. And so I was looking at a lot of old master paintings. There's a lot of beautiful paintings like the Youth of Bacchus by Bouguereau, comes to mind. And I just thought, like these paintings were so beautiful, and like, what if I could do something like that? But put my own little twist on it and kind of tell tell the story and reweave the myths that
Hmm.
living through me at that time. Like it felt all very visceral. And so um but what well, yeah, kind of like the clincher for me was one of the last Christmas gifts that I ever received from my father before he passed away was just like a box of colored pencils. And at the time, I hadn't been doing any art, and I thought it was kind of a strange gift. I'm like, "Well, Dad, why'd you get me this?" But on the tin of of the pencils was, I mean, it had to be Dionysus, with like the grapes and the hair and the long flowing hair.
Yeah.
Um, and he didn't know anything about what I was doing, at my altar or online. Like he didn't know about the spiritual process that was unfolding in my heart, I guess. Um, and I just thought, wow, okay. It was like a synchronicity, another synchronicity that was just like a sign to keep going down that path. And, after a couple of years of training, I was like, this is it. I have to take the plunge. Like I can't delay um, this call any longer.
Mm. It's beautiful, and it I like how you use the word visceral. The My experience, at least with Dionysus, with the Orphic current, is it is very visceral, physically demanding at times, challenging. Comes to mind the rending of the bowl, the sparagimos of the bowl, just the pulling it apart. And so I like that. I like that that's something that we kind of all seem to share as we move through this current, um, especially with Dionysus. There is that Bacchic, wild, untamed party animal that challenges us to take on a new form, a new shape, and that's
Yeah,
awesome that it is so similar. Um, and
I
so
that thunderclap when you said wild, untamed party animal, like there was a thunderbolt outside.
Well, there's so much linkage between Zeus and Dionysus, so it makes sense. It
Mhm.
makes sense. The raucous bull roarer that is Dionysus.
Romeos.
Um, that's yes, Bromios, exactly. So tell us a little bit about what that process is like when you have an inspiration. How do you set out to work in this medium of paint?
Yeah, so I would say there's different ways that I work or different ways that I get inspiration. Sometimes it's a little bit more mundane, like I'll be reading something and I'll think, "Oh, that's a really interesting concept," or "That's a really interesting image." And other times, you know, uh, the gods, the spirits, the helper spirits will tell me what um what they would like me to paint. And I kind of have to comply. But yeah,
I know the feeling.
it's that Jungian phrase, like what wants to come into the world through you. It's
Hmm.
not like what do you want to do? It's like what's to come through you. And I definitely feel that. Um, as part of my religious spiritual practice, like I'll do journey work sometimes.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of times I'll see an image in that space that kind of inspires an idea for a painting. Like for example, the idea of the kingfisher painting, Halcyon Gaze, which was
Hmm.
one of my earlier like large scale like mythological paintings. Um, but at the time, I mean, who knows where all this stuff comes from, right? Like it, kind of like dreams. The dreams are kind of like the detritus of your day mixed with like the archetypal images of the collective unconscious and whatever else the dream maker wants to throw in there. And so with the idea for this painting, I've been puzzling over these mysteries at Lerna. um,
Hmm.
a region of the Argolid in Greece, which was like very marshy, and there were all these nocturnal rituals and sacrifices to Dionysus, where they'd like drag a sheep out to the swamp and throw it in there, and other things which the Pausanias famously would not disclose. But the name of the lake there was called the Alkyonian Lake, and I just thought that was such an interesting name, like Alkyonian Lake. What is that? And why didn't they translate it? Is it a reference to Alcyone, which is like a nymph, a Pleiadian nymph? Or maybe it's a reference to Alkyonius, which was like a giant, one of the giants. You know,
Mm.
what does this mean? What does this mean? Um, I kind of vaguely recall at the same time reading this really cool little book called Nietzsche's Bestiary, and it was just like a book of essays about the animal symbolism in Nietzsche. And there's like a chapter in there about how Nietzsche was actually the first person to bring back the word halcyon into a Western language, uh,
Okay.
writing in German, but we also say halcyon in English as kind of like based on the myth. It's like the a time of ease, you know, uh, because mythically, in the wintertime, there was like a lull in like the stormy seas, and the sea was just very calm. And these mythical birds that kind of resemble kingfishers can lay their eggs during this time of year. Anyway, all of that is like a long.
It's all fascinating.
Yeah, sorry, this is just how my brain works. I'm like constantly free associating. But anyway, I was kind of wondering what this mystery was all about, and really curious about it. And in my journey space, I came out into like this forested area, and Orpheus appeared. And I mentioned before, Orpheus had been kind of elusive to me up until that point, actually. And so, I see Orpheus, and I'm like, oh my god, it's Orpheus, it's Orpheus.
It's him. It's him.
Like, yeah. Trying to remain calm so I don't like come out of my trance. And he leads me to this little pond in the middle of a clearing in the forest, and there's kingfishers
Mm.
diving for fish by the light of the moon. And you could go wild with all the symbolism in that little image there. But he never said a word. He just took me there, and then he pointed and said, "Do this."
Mm.
Okay, what does this mean? And so that sent me on like a whole year-long journey, or more now at this point, um, of kind of my own version of those mysteries, like those Lernaean mysteries of the kingfishers and the reptiles and the fish, the good fish and the nasty reptiles, or maybe they're not nasty, maybe they serve a purpose. And so it's like kingfishers. Okay, how how do kingfishers come into the myth of Dionysus at Lerna, where he entered the underworld? And I think this was kind of my initiation into a catabasis of my own.
Mm.
This was around the time of the pandemic. I was like deep in the throes of art school while also trying to navigate a pandemic in a really restrictive area. And yeah, I was definitely in my own little underworld. Orpheus kind of showed me that I needed to dive deep. You know,
Mm.
I thought, well, I'm not just gonna like transform into a kingfisher. That's like too obvious. At the time, I'd been reading Mircea Eliade's book on shamanism and all the
I can
descriptions.
sense that.
Yeah, well, I also collect masks. That was another entree into the world of Dionysus, and
Mm.
they're all up in my living room staring at me. And I thought, well, yeah, I always wanted to try making my own mask. Like now's the time. So I made this kingfisher mask because I didn't. Yeah, I wanted it to be rooted in the material somehow. I had this like kind of image from the imaginal, and how could I root it, bring it down to earth? And so part of that process was making the painting, but and another layer of that was making the prop, making the mask for the painting. And so
Hmm.
that took me several months just to like design the thing and glue all the feathers on it. And it was like a an interesting process, like a somatic process, an intellectual process that like brought me deeper into the mysteries of Dionysus and Orphism, and also of painting itself.
Mm, I love that. The act of producing something in the material realm in association with your imaginal experience is always a potent anchor for the message, and it also kind of, for me, it's always like I hesitate to call it memorabilia, but that's kind of what it feels like at
Yeah.
times. It's
Mhm.
a physical anchor that I can go back to as a memory anchor for myself, but also if I need to go back.
Mhm.
Most of my what I would call animistic or shamanistic journey work has always been accompanied with some sort of either image, whether
Mhm.
that's something that I draw out, or just terribly toddler like paint out, um, or something physical, whether that's a wooden effigy or a wand or something of that nature, whatever matches the experience. So when I saw your process of making the mask, I was like, yes, yes, there it is. Somebody else who does the weird little thing that I do. It was like seeing looking in the mirror a little bit, and I think it's remarkable how in something so kind of fringe
Mhm.
in esoteric occult landscape, if you will, that Orphism kind of is, even though it's kind of exploded in recent years. It's really kind of proliferated into more than it has been previously, both in academia and I think in more of the public discourse as well. More people are interested in it. It was just refreshing to see that reflected in another person. And I'm like, so it's not just me. There is this component of I have to I have to attempt to bring that imaginal piece into the material
Yes.
to kind of finish or finalize and integrate that experience,
Yeah.
and to fully embody it. Like if I and I've done this, like where if I don't do that, the lesson either gets kind of lost or I lose some sort of connection to it. And for
Mhm.
whatever reason, if I don't get to it, that's, I guess, probably not for me to know. Maybe I wasn't supposed to have that
Yeah.
particular piece. But I have found that when you do take that final step, when you make it into a material item, it does seem to kind of coagulate everything. And I really liked how you laid it out within your article. So if you guys are interested, please go look at Theo's write up on the Kingfisher. And I think you did have an image of the mask in there. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I think I remember you put one in there. It's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It looks better in photos than it does in real life. It's seen better days. It's moved. It's changed house. It sits in the closet now. Should probably bring it out. But
No, it's really cool. And incorporating some of that shamanic element is really cool, I think. So much of my experience within underworld journey or catabasis of any kind has that element. You're located here in the States, correct?
yeah,
Right.
or
Y-
them. Mhm.
Yeah. And so I think that one of the things, it's a universal experience traversing to the underworld. You can find it in just about every culture on the planet. But the modes, I'm curious to get your take on how you enter into that. Is there a specific tie to the land here that you're using, or a specific perhaps technique, or if you're willing to share, of course. You don't
Sure.
have to, but
It varies. The way I learned the technique of journeying that I use through like an initiation process, which um relies on the toys of Dionysus:
nice. Okay.
ball, hoop, mirror, doll. There's a bunch of them, and so in that process, you kind of have a prompt, and you go in, and then you encounter that spirit. But now that I'm finished with that process, and to be quite honest, like the toys of Dionysus are fucking scary. like I don't
Is
want
there a titanic element behind those toys? Like
yeah.
when you're using those toys, are you meeting with a titan?
You could say that. You could say that. Yeah. And there were definitely some dismemberments and it's very alchemical. I was boiled, I was
Hmm.
up, I was rained upon by 1,000 swords. Like, a lot of it happened. Um but now instead of, sometimes I'll still anchor myself to one of the toys to get in. Um the ball is a good one. The ball is like a nice playful energy, nice rounded friendly energy. But a lot of times I'll also base it in like the sacred topography of different Dionysian currents, or maybe from the myths of like Apollo. It kind of depends on if I have a specific objective in mind, or if I want to work with a certain god or spirit. Then, for example, I might go to the Alkyonian lake, which
Mm.
surely doesn't look exactly like the Alkyonian lake as it existed in Greece, but it's my Alkyonian lake. And and I'll go there, um and then, yeah, to kind of access that, I might just close my eyes. I have to synchronize my breath a bit. Um and I use different patterns of counting to kind of like get me into the space. A little incense helps, lighting a candle, just like anything to kind of quiet the mind and just kind of like drop in. And sometimes I can't do it. Sometimes there's just like too much mental detritus like getting in the way. But when it does work, it's pretty cool. you can get you can get like immediate answers. Not always understandable. You have to kind of
No, right.
immediate guide
So
world.
tell us a little bit about the Heart of Zagreus piece that you did. How did that come into fruition?
That one was pretty wild. And I still don't quite understand it. I'm still working on it, actually. But the Heart of Zagreus, the smoldering Heart of Zagreus, was a still life painting that I made last year. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I actually have it right here. Well, this is my like throbbing bloody Heart of Zagreus that you know.
I was going to ask if you made one or if you have a physical anchor.
Yeah, yeah. I bought it on Etsy, so it's not as cool as some of my other ritual objects. I wasn't quite willing to sacrifice a bull and then somehow emulsify the heart in resin to preserve it, but not quite that hardcore. But yeah, that came from sort of like a spontaneous vision that I received, where I spoke about the heart in the Substack post about it, where this like bright flashing light just came out of the sky, and it was like a pair of hands holding this heart.
Oh, wow.
um and I was like lying on the ground with like a hole in my chest where my heart should be. It was just like open, and it was like I was like, like one of those like fabric dolls with like floppy limbs, and then this is just like full of like cotton batting. It was like ripped open, and the
Oh,
hands deposited the heart right into my chest cavity. And meanwhile, Dionysus is over here performing like spiritual CPR, like blowing the breath of something, of life. I don't know, the world's into my body, and I was just like kind of like paralyzed for a few moments. I was in the bathtub when this happened, just kind of like, thinking, about life, and then this happens. I'm like, what the fuck? What was that? Uh, and that image really just always stuck with me, and I've meditated on it more and more. And just this image of the heart, and I think that still life painting that I made was the impetus for digging deeper into that. Like sometimes I'll start a cycle of paintings with a still life, like maybe a found object or a ritual object that I made. Like I'll just set it up and I'll paint it. And that gives me like a space of like, a week or two to kind of just meditate on this object, like the physical form, but also the significance behind it. And so I just was really thinking about like this like bloody pulsating heart and like what does that mean? What does it mean um that was the part preserved after Zagreus was like completely
Hmm.
some say that Persephone rescued the heart. Some say that
Hermes is one.
Hermes, yeah. There's all different in the version in the vision that I saw, there was no face, but I just kind of intuited that it was Apollo.
Mm.
And in a sense, it was like Apollo had the key. Apollo was the key to like giving back to me like the heart of my heart's desire, basically. Which that was like an insight that came later when I started working on my painting Desidere, where there's like a boy with like a glowing heart and he's kind of like motioning like this, and then there's like stars in the back and the bioluminescence in the water, and it kind of dawned on me that the bioluminescence that you can see here in like the Florida waters, like the water will literally glow blue in the summertime if you kind of like
Mm.
stir it up a little bit, and how that is almost like an as above so below kind of reverse mirror image of the stars in the sky. And then the heart was on fire when I saw it, so it's almost like all of our burning hearts, our hearts full of desire. And I don't mean desire in like a
Hmm.
of way, like a lustful way, but it's like what is your soul really craving? Like why did you incarnate on this earth? And
Hmm.
our hearts are like little stars on the earth. And according to the Orphics, after death we return to that astral realm, so to speak. So yeah, the heart of Zagreus is like a really potent image for me, and I'm still working on it. And
Mm.
what started as something very individual, like what is my thing, like what do I want, what is my desire, uh has kind of shifted into like a more communitarian kind of thing. Like in the painting behind me, Hearts Gather Round, I haven't posted about this one yet, but you can't really tell maybe from this distance, but all of the figures have a glowing heart in their chest.
Oh, very cool.
So all of these people with glowing hearts have now found each other, and they're working together in a ritual context. And
Mm.
so, a lot of my paintings are grounded in ritual and spiritual experience, but also I want to bring the ritual into the painting. So now it's just kind of like feeding on itself. And, I call it the conspiracy of the smoldering heart. And what fun adventures await this band of brothers, in the fields. And here, I don't know if you can see, but he's holding an Orphic egg in his left hand and then releasing the serpent up into the sky with the other hand. And I don't really know exactly what that means. I could try to guess, but I think it's more fun to just live in the mystery.
I think so. I think so too. But I do want to touch on like the processing that you have going on within uh, each painting. You're talking about here's my heart, here's my experience with the heart being, put back. That's your individual part of this. Each one of us has that individual task, including within the Orphic, mysteries. We've got to
Mhm.
figure out what is that divine piece? How do we integrate it with the Titanic? It's not necessarily about extricating or surgically removing that Titanic, but how do I integrate the Olympic and the Titanic together?
Mhm.
And once you do that as an individual, then it becomes a social element. And that
Mhm.
was one of the things that you can definitely tell, at least from what academia is telling us. The social component of it was something of a communal effort to change things and to take that into the world. There was, whether it's the the missionary types who were going about that Plato complains about, talks about how they were selling, golden tablets to people for the afterlife, or the more cloistered communal types that lived
Mhm.
more like the Pythagoreans. There is that kind of stage. You have an initiation, kind of like how you talked about with the Kingfisher piece. Then
Mhm.
comes the heart. Then comes your work individually within
Yes.
the context of your community, and then finally moving into a more communal aspect, which is really part and parcel of the entire Orphic journey itself. It's show me these mysteries, let me integrate myself, and then move forward with a community in a heart centric way, purified and purgated of all of the different things that I thought were me but are not anymore. And so to
Uh,
to wrap it up in a little bow there, that's what I'm hearing when I'm hearing you speak.
no, I love that. I hadn't really considered that as like sort of like a natural trajectory, but it makes a lot of sense to me. And last night I have this book of like Rumi's poems that I used to really look
Wonderful.
it up last night. I haven't read it in years, and I just flipped randomly to a section about the pearl of the heart. And there's all these poems about how the heart is a mirror, or the
Hmm.
sided surface, and the faithful are mirrors for each other, and all this stuff. And it just like it was like a very full circle moment, like thinking of myself, probably like 20 years ago. I bought this book, um, before I knew anything about Orphism. But it's so true. Like, our hearts are kind of mirrors for each other, for the other initiates, for
Hmm.
souls on this journey here on Earth. And yeah, I think it's really cool.
It is, and there's one of the things I said before, Orphism in general was sort of fringe, but also interpenetrated all of Greece as Orpheus being the lawgiver for Greece, the theologian, um, maybe with some elements of Musaeus in there as well, his potential pupil or son, or maybe he's the same guy, or maybe he's Moses. We don't really know. Um, but that element interpenetrates Greek life so much, and then we see it also reflected in early Christianity, and then we see it also. I think it's funny that you bring up Rumi's poems as well, because there is a lot of resonances in the Sufi tradition as well that really align with what the Orphics were talking about, and they're separated potentially by uh, you know almost 1,000 years at times.
Mhm.
But that same thread kind of still, you can see that there's this thread. You think about the Orphics in general, early on, you look at stuff with like the Derveni Papyrus, which we're thinking 6th century BCE. They're already moving to a really kind of, there is a one thing, and
Mhm.
these are all of its masks sort of idea, with Zeus at the head, and all of these things. And I think it's very interesting to watch that thread as it moves through time and cultures, and how it shapes and reshapes and changes, and the kind of synchronicities of you bringing up Rumi in the middle of that, especially with
Yeah,
my new publication on Hearts Ablaze here, and all
yeah.
that. There's a tremendous amount of resonance between the two.
Hmm. Yeah, I really think that like maybe not everything, but so much of like Western spirituality, and if you want to lump the Islamic world into the West or not, it's kind of a question, but it all of it's downstream from Orpheus, in one,
Hmm.
the Neoplatonists who you also write about, who were really inspired by Orphic ideas,
Hmm.
that got absorbed into Christianity and then passed along to the Islamic world. Um, but I think there is like a historical chain there that you can trace, but it's also archetypal.
Hmm.
These are just conclusions that people come to if they're paying attention in their
Yeah,
life.
it speaks to opening the heart, and when you do that, these things show up, and they show up very similarly across time and culture.
Mhm.
And it's funny, Orpheus being a bard, a poet. Then you have somebody like Rumi, also very heart centered, a
Yeah.
poet.
Hmm.
All of these things, like you say, they're all downstream of the same archetypal energy that seems to move through us when we engage with that mode of
Yeah.
being.
When I first showed my painting Desidere in a gallery, I did a little gallery talk, and everybody thought that I had kind of been looking at icons of Jesus, the Sacred Heart of
The
Jesus. And
Sacred Heart.
I did actually look at some, but I also looked at still images from the movie E.T., where
Yeah.
where he's like, "E.T. phone home," so it's out there, and it's gonna come around and get you one way or another if you're
Hmm.
if you're paying attention.
Yeah, and it's not always a pretty experience. So it's very
Yeah.
challenging.
Hmm.
I know for myself, Dionysus was always a challenge, but it was also um, it was a challenge because of the path that I was on. Being someone now in recovery, it's funny that Dionysus was the cure in a way for myself to enter into recovery. Going back to thinking of hermetic like cures like, it was it actually embracing the ideas and the spirit of Dionysus that really helped me to get to a position where I could begin to heal what was ailing me on a spiritual level. And it is really interesting. Hey, bud, don't knock into the camera. I've got a friend who's just dying to get on camera.
Oh my God, mine's scratching at the door. Poor thing.
uh,
And I don't
so,
think accident. Like I will say, back when I was more actively participating in like real life ritual with other people, other initiates, my first impressions were that it was a little bit boring for a Dionysian ritual. I was expecting a lot more madness and debauchery, and a lot of these people were actually sober.
mm,
Uh, and that I think I was fortunate to come into that type of space as opposed to the other kind early journey because it really taught me um, some essential truths about Dionysus. And one of my favorite images of Dionysus is like the mask on the pole, and so everyone around is dancing or doing whatever they're doing, and he's just like still. So in one sense, I sometimes like to think of Dionysus as the only sober guy at the party. It's not that he's a drunk; it's just everyone around him happens to be
he's
drunk,
intoxicating.
intoxicated.
Yes, by his very presence is intoxicating to mortals and to gods alike, and that's one of the interesting things about him. God, it's been a while since I've seen that image that you're talking about, but him being the kind of the axis mundi of the entire image, he is the center upon which everything flows
Uh
in
huh.
that Bacchic mystery. Is really really powerful.
Hmm.
So, what are you working on now? What do you got coming out? Is there anything you want
Yeah.
to tease?
Yes. So, I mentioned earlier that crazy vision I had of like Apollo and Dionysus kind of coming at me from both sides with the heart and with the breath. And so I've been working on like a pretty epic painting with like, you know, those two plus all nine muses and a bunch of satyrs and Silenus and some maenads.
Woohoo!
It's gonna be pretty wild, but it's a big project. So, I've started working on it, but in the meantime, I've been just painting little details from it, like the portrait of Apollo, just to make sure he looks the way I want him, and Dionysus. I might do some studies of like little satyr boys being mischievous. um, yeah, that is a big one in the works, and then also, yeah, kind of like I mentioned, bringing the ritual into the paintings. I'm thinking of doing a painting about the what do they call it? Thronosis or enthronismos. I think there's different terms for it, but this was one version of an Orphic initiation where they put put the initiate to be on a little throne, like a little stool, and then everybody else in the Theostos is going crazy around him, like trying to tempt, to dissuade, to annoy, to you know, kind of test in a way, test that person's mettle, and kind of like that Axis Mundi idea again, but instead it's like the person on the chair, which is again another multi-figure piece that I'm still collecting all the models for, but looking forward to that for sure.
Mm, that's beautiful. We'll have to have you on here again once you wrap and you can walk us through it all.
Yeah, I love
We had a comment which is actually pretty integral to what we were talking about from Abdullah. He says, on the point of that ET reference, if we are here and our parents once abode in a garden not of this earth, then we are not truly from here. We are merely in transit, visitors in borrowed time. This place is not home, it is the long hallway between. And I think he had some more, but it cut off there. But I really like that because that does speak to uh, really, and I know Abdullah is coming from that Sufi perspective, but there is again that same resonance in the Orphic material. That is, we are here for a time, and then we go somewhere else, and it is a temporal uh, experience, and so make of it as you will. But there is a sense of alien and a sense of belonging at the same time. The From the Orphic perspective, anyway, that Olympian is the kind of foreign feeling,
yeah,
whereas that Titanic is the matter of our body here. That does feel like it's at home at times, but
yeah,
I think again it goes back to us integrating those two parts. That is a big part of it.
definitely. That's actually going to be, I think, the topic of my next Substack post.
Awesome.
There's this song called Celestial Blues by the band King Woman. And it's like a very visceral, kind of like doom metal kind of sound, but like talking about not feeling like you belong on this earth and like, the celestial blues. I want to go back to wherever home is. And kind of like it's at the nexus of those two polarities. I just love that song, and it kind of inspired one of my paintings as well.
Awesome. I look forward to it, man. Uh, so we're coming up on 2, and I know that's when we talked about when we were gonna cut this off. Do you have anything else you want to tell the audience? Anything else you want to say? Hey, first, everybody, go and subscribe if you're
Yes.
watching this to Theo's Substack, where he shares a lot more about the intimacy of that process, what's going through his mind. There's a couple of really beautiful posts there, and I can't wait to see what else he shares there. So do go and subscribe. You've got that piece coming up. Is there anything else you want to share? Anywhere else we can go look at your stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely subscribe to the Substack. That's kind of where I've been writing more long form about the inspiration. Uh, you can also definitely check out my website. I have a whole gallery of images up there, and you can kind of check those out and read a little bit more about my journey. Instagram, um, if you want to get like more deep into like the process or things like that, you can check out my Instagram. I'm always posting like what I'm doing in the studio there, and yeah, also subscribe to my collector's newsletter on my website. So many things. That one is more like a once a month. Like, this is what was produced in the studio. It's for sale. Or I have this show coming up. Everything kind of interpenetrates. Like, I like to give people the option of, fighting me whatever feels easiest for them.
Hmm, beautiful.
And if,
Well,
strikes a chord, reach out. I love to talk about this stuff. So
that's true. We've had a couple of conversations here just on the platform, and it's been a wonderful exchange. And I'm really glad I got to have you on here as well. We'll have to do it again. We've already got requests in the chat. Please have him on again. This was a lovely discussion from Eden G.
yeah, thank you so much, Frater OG and OD. And Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, you're just so prolific on Substack. Like I'm just like awe of all the posts you've been making, and like your thoughtfulness and creativity and kind of bridging all these seemingly disparate traditions and currents into something that really like resonates with me, and it seems to be resonating with a lot of people. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, thank you. That's my hope, anyway, is to see that we have far more binding us together than that separates us, and not that separation in and of itself is a bad thing,
Mm,
but when it becomes divisive to the point of angst and this is mine and that's yours,
yes.
I that is something that I think we desperately need to address, and that's part of my mission really in general is to show us that we're brothers and sisters at the end of this. And whether we're in this locale, or we came from this part of the world or this culture, at the end of the day, we're all going home to the same experience. And there's so much that we can gain from these dialogues instead of silos, which I'm afraid the internet has turned us into a bunch of silos that are echo chambers and not speaking to each other. So I'm floored that people are thrilled with the more universal attack that I have on things,
Yeah.
because I know it can be tricky to navigate those waters, and it has been. But that's one of the things I feel like I have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. It have to do, but not in like a bad way, right? It's kind of like I feel like
No, it's a gift.
I have to paint. Like if I don't paint, then I don't know what'll happen with me. Obeying.
It's like me with words. If I'm not clacking the keys at some point in the day, I feel lost. Right? Yeah, the only other anchor I have other than writing is reading,
Mm,
and that really will trigger me and send me off on new things. And you guys will all find that out on Substack when I pop up with a new idea or a new series. I'm like, well,
mm,
this is what OD's going through right now.
yeah.
You can always tell what I'm reading based on what I'm writing about. Like,
Yeah.
but we'll have to have you on again, brother. It's been wonderful. For any of you just tuning in now, I will repost this probably next week. So look for that in your inbox. But for the time being, brother, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to let you get back to the rest of your day to the studio to paint me some more Orphic masterpieces, please.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
All right, guys. If you have anything you want to ask, please subscribe to Theo. Or just if you had something for me, hit me up in the chat here on Substack. I'm always trying to make myself available.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, brother.